Since coming into government, more than 500,000 jobs have been created already. That's more than any first-term government in Australia's history, and 85% of those jobs are full-time jobs. Wages are now growing at the fastest rate for a decade, and that's important in a cost-of-living crisis, because I know those opposite don't understand this and they don't like to hear it. But in a cost-of-living crisis, it's not just inflation and the way that prices go up. It's also money that comes into workers' bank accounts. It's money that comes into the family, into the household. And that's why it's so important that we now have a government that has a policy, a deliberate design feature of our economic management to see wages grow. But the truth also is, Deputy Speaker, that many Australians are not receiving the full benefits of this wages growth because of legal loopholes that allow pay and conditions to be undercut. It's also a shameful fact that a large amount of wages in this country now are simply stolen from workers. The McKell Institute analysis, based on Fair Work Commission data and audits, showed that Australian workers were underpaid nearly $850 million a year, ripping $330 million of economic activity out of the country. In my electorate of Bruce alone, those estimates are that 8,000 people lost nearly $5 million in wage theft in just 1 year. So what does this bill do about it? 4 things, Deputy Speaker, in simple terms. It makes wage theft illegal. If an employee steals from an employer, it's illegal. But it's not a crime when an employer intentionally steals from their workers. Well, it should be. Number 2, it stops employers using labour hire agreements to undercut wages. Now, of course, there is a legitimate role for labour hire work in Australia, but not when a business uses it to blatantly avoid enterprise rates of pay. This is a loophole that the bill will close. The third thing it does is improve the situation for casual workers. Again, many Australians work permanent regular hours just the same as permanent employees, but they can't get any of the benefits of job security even if they want to. And so this bill will simply allow casuals to choose. There will be a new pathway for eligible employees to change to permanent employment if they want to. I stress that again. It will be the choice of the employee. Nothing in this bill forces casuals to take permanent work. Many casuals want to stay casual. Absolutely fine. But many casual workers want the benefits of sick leave and the protections that come. We saw that in the pandemic. Millions of workers suddenly stranded. Although they've been in the same job year after year doing the same thing, they had no sick leave when disaster struck. Well, this bill will deal with that. And the fourth thing it does is for gig economy workers. Sets fair minimum standards for employee-like work in the gig economy. Gig workers have no minimum standards, no minimum pay and no minimum conditions. That's a disgrace. Gig economy workers are exactly the sort of workers who the Labor Party has always fought for and who need basic workplace standards. This loophole is a rort. It causes serious harm, physical harm, economic harm, social harm to workers, and it's not fair. But these are not just statistics, Deputy Speaker. They're real people right across Australia. Everyday Australians in every community are being hurt and exploited because of these loopholes, as well as vulnerable migrant workers. And remember, when migrant workers are exploited, it's not just other people. It impacts everyone in Australia because it drags down the pay and the conditions for everyone else. One example in my electorate of Bruce. The Fair Work Ombudsman sanctioned a waste management company more than $375,000 after just 5 vulnerable migrant workers were underpaid almost $200,000 over just 20 months in 2018 and 19. Do the math. That's $2,000 per month per worker. They were employed to sort waste at facilities in Dandenong and Hallam. And it sums up the 4 main elements of the bill: labour hire loopholes, having their wages stolen, casual workers who actually wanted permanent regular hours, and no minimum rates and minimum standards, gig economy workers being ripped off. But it is worth reflecting on why these loopholes exist. It's a simple answer. Because for nearly a decade under the Liberals, the former government, they simply refused to do anything. They knew that these labour hire loopholes and rorts were growing. They had report after report they failed to act on. They knew that the gig economy forms of work were exploding with digital technology. They had reports, they were told, and they did nothing. And they knew that wage theft was out of control, that unscrupulous employers, a minority of employers, of course. Most businesses, most employers don't steal wages from their workers. But the Liberals knew perfectly well that a small minority of bottom-feeder employers were doing exactly that, and they stood by and did nothing. And it drags down wages for everyone. I stress again, that analysis showed, the McKell Institute analysis showed, that the average Australian worker would have been earning $254 more a week if wages growth had continued under that mob in their wasted decade of decay and dysfunction and division. If wages growth had continued, simply continued at the same rate it had been under the Rudd-Gillard government. Under Labor, Rudd and Gillard, wages grew at 4.6% on average. Under the Libs, it was 2.5%. Real wages actually went backwards in their decade in office. But, Deputy Speaker, it was actually no accident. In one of those rare outbreaks of honesty under the former mob, then Finance Minister Matthias Cormann went on the television, still there, you can still Google it and watch it, he went on the television and he said, well, low wages are a deliberate design feature of our economic management. Like, what's wrong with trying to lower wages, thought the Liberals. That was actually their policy. Again, independent analysis constantly exposes their policies. Liberals are to blame for suppressing wages, including public sector pay freezes, an increase in the number of visas for temporary migrant workers, inaction on wage theft in the gig economy, failing to press the Fair Work Commission for bigger minimum wage increases, cutting penalty rates. At every turn they tried to cut wages. Now, I'm going to quote myself, because I was having a bit of a Google around and a bit of a look because I knew there was something back there in the back of my mind, and I found myself reported in the media. Finally in government, though, because we've been talking about this for years, Deputy Speaker. I know you've been talking about it through the Joint Standing Committee on Migration. Finally in government, though, we are able not just to talk but to do something about it. But the media article said the Labor MP Julian Hill, a member of the Joint Standing Committee on Migration, with you, Deputy Speaker, also blames the government's decision, the then government, that's the Liberals, not us, to freeze the minimum rate of pay for workers on temporary skilled visas as a factor in wage suppression. Get the figures. When Kevin Rudd left office in 2013, the temporary skilled migration income threshold, that's the minimum rate of pay that you have to pay a temporary skilled worker if you bring them in on a temporary skilled visa, was $53,900. For a decade under the Liberals, they left the minimum wage that a temporary skilled migrant needed to be paid stuck at $53,900. What do you think that does in a decade? It pushes wages down, and that was their deliberate policy. Well, this government immediately raised it to $70,000, and we're further reviewing the migration system. They lost control of the borders, and now Leader of the Opposition, that hopeless disgrace of a Minister for Home Affairs, under his watch, you know, the tough on borders guy, nearly 100,000 fake asylum seekers came into this country by plane on a work scam. What does that do? It helps push down wages and exploits people. I'll close with quotes from the Minister, because this implements our election commitments. The businesses which use these loopholes are able to undercut Australia's best employers in a race to the bottom. If we want workers to be properly paid, we need to close the loopholes. If we want casuals to have a pathway to secure work, we need to close the loopholes. If we want enterprise agreements to determine minimum rates of pay at a workplace, then we need to close the loopholes. If we want gig workers and those in road transport to have minimum standards, then we need to close the loopholes. Deputy Speaker, the delaying tactics are obvious. The silly little quorum counts, the pathetic tantrums, the fake points of order. Those workers have waited long enough, Deputy Speaker, so today the Parliament should pass this bill.